thermal cameras installed at the Fort Railway Station. Community physicians hint of a change in people's lifestyles. Champika Ranavaka and Kumara Velgama file fundamental rights petition challenging the date of the election. Constitutional Council to convene on Monday. A very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. Now taking a look at those stories in detail, preparations are afoot to resume certain daily activities of the general public. Now we inquired into the preparations made to resume these activities of the people living in high risk zones while curfew continues to be in effect.
Curfew that was imposed across the entire island at 8 p.m. on the 5th of this month continues to be in effect. Curfew was continued in the districts of Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara and Puttalam for the last 40 days as a majority of the COVID-19 patients were reported from these areas. The number of COVID-19 patients from Colombo stands at 150. 36 COVID-19 patients were found in Gampaha. 35 patients were identified in the Puttalam district, which has a population of about 800,000. 34 people suspected to have contracted the coronavirus have been found in the Kalutara district. District secretaries in these high-risk zones spoke about the future plans for these districts.
You supported us for the last 2 months when curfew was in effect. You supported the efforts of the government as well as the security forces. The people of the Colombo district have a huge responsibility in eradicating the COVID-19 virus from this country. If the government provides you with some concession from the 11th, I request you to use this money sparingly. If not, we will have to invalidate these concessions. The government has advised us to take 4 main steps to control the situation. Masks must be used at all times. Social distancing should be observed when entering the district secretariat. People will only be allowed to enter the district secretariat after a temperature check. We must restrict holding meetings and other events where people gather. We have planned to restrict these events and only continue providing essential services. We announced the measures issued by health authorities. State sector employees will operate from Monday according to these measures. These areas will be disinfected today and tomorrow. We have provided public transport facilities for employees of private and public institutions to travel to their places of work.
378 people at 2 quarantine centers in the northern province returned to their homes today. Amongst them were 298 persons who were quarantined at the 522nd Battalion's quarantine center in Thenmaracha, Jaffna. Residents of Bandaranayaka Mawatha in Colombo and Keselwatta were among those who completed the quarantine period.
The soldiers took good care of us. They went to great effort both day and night.
80 persons quarantined at the Ilaikachi Quarantine Center in Kilinochi also returned to their homes today.
The first Navy sailor who contracted COVID-19 has made a full recovery and has returned home. The sailor is attached to the Valisara Navy base. He tested positive for the virus while he was on vacation at his residence in Pulastigama, Lankapura. He was treated at the Valikanda hospital and was discharged today.
The people were selected at random for the testing. We hope to select 50 people from surrounding areas to be tested today.
The bus depot in Gunasinghapura, Colombo was disinfected today. This was done by the Red Cross and the Dam Street Police. Steps were taken to install thermal cameras at the Fort Railway Station. These cameras installed at the entrance to the railway station can capture images of people entering the railway station and automatically monitor and record their body temperature. Deputy Chairman of Airport and Aviation Services, Rajiv Suryarachi, explained the steps that have been taken at the airport premises after a passenger on board a flight that landed from Dubai tested positive for COVID-19. Steps were taken to admit the patient. All other passengers have been directed to quarantine. In addition to that, all staff attached to the flight have carried out their duties in a secure manner, adhering to the rules and regulations of the World Health Organization. All staff members who were on board the flight have been directed to quarantine. Moreover, myself and the chairman have held many rounds of discussions with all officials attached to flight operations and all associations that operate duty-free shops at the airport premises. Following the discussions, we informed the relevant authorities in charge of the duty-free shopping complexes located at the arrival terminal to open their shops.
Meanwhile, several people who were part of a group stranded in the Mount Lavinia Police Division, unable to return to their homes due to the curfew, were able to return to their hometowns today. A program to transport people who have been stranded in Colombo to their respective hometowns has commenced. There have been 3 instances where groups have been sent back to their hometowns, and today the opportunity was offered to the group in the Mount Lavinia Police Division. The group had come from 10 police divisions, including Dehiwala, Kohuwala, Piliyandala, Kahatuduwa, Morotua and Mount Lavinia. Close to 10,000 people have been stranded in these police divisions, unable to return to their hometowns. Over the past few days, these groups of people registered themselves with the police stations in their respective hometowns to avail themselves of the opportunity to return home. They will be relocated in stages, with the first group departing today. Close to 1,200 people were disinfected before they boarded the buses at the Ratnalana railway station.
We provided breakfast to everyone being transported. We provided them with lunch packs and 2 water bottles for breakfast and lunch. The group that are travelling today have been selected by health authorities. There is a second group and we have made arrangements for them as well.
40 SLTB buses were dispatched to various parts of the island, including Hatton, Badulla, Ampara, Anuradhapura, Hambantota and Galle. The passengers were briefed on the steps they should follow to maintain social distancing and prevent infection.
Now, a new update of the COVID-19 outbreak here in Sri Lanka. 12 more COVID-19 infections were reported in the country today. This brought the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country to 847. 578 people continue to receive in-house treatment for the virus. 260 people have recovered from COVID-19 so far. We'll come back and bring you more news after this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. Welcome back to the news. Electric fences act as a bulwark to protect residents of rural villages from encroaching wild elephants. However, today we have received reports from Kantale of an unfortunate incident where an 8-year-old child had been electrocuted by such a fence erected to protect him. According to the police, the deceased child was a resident of the 10th mile post area in Moravava, Trincomalee. The electric fence has been erected surrounding a private land. Although the owner of the land disconnects the supply of electricity to the fence during the daytime, today, due to the negligence of the owner, the supply of electricity had not been disconnected. The child met with this unfortunate fate while he was on his way to a nearby shop. The remains of the child are currently placed at the Mahadivulvava hospital. Further investigations regarding the incident are carried out by police. Moving your attention to the political outlook here in Sri Lanka. Co-Cabinet spokesperson Minister Bandula Gunawardena convened a media briefing today to respond to allegations pertaining to utilizing of public finances.
Now, the President has legally dissolved Parliament. Following the dissolution, all of Parliament's powers have been vested with the President as per the Constitution. This does not mean that a vote on account has been adopted in Parliament. What applies here is a different Act. It is Act number 40 of 1982, the Debt Special Provisions Act. This Act has clear stipulations on the power to raise debt domestically and internationally when there is no appropriation bill, and this has been approved by Parliament. The President and the caretaker cabinet are always acting in line with the Constitution. The Secretary to the President, Dr. P.B. Jayasundara, has obtained the advice of the Attorney General in order to bear the essential expenditure. If anyone has an issue with this, rather than complaining, they can go to the Supreme Court and seek an interim injunction.
සම්බන්ධයෙන් නීතිපතිතුමාගෙත් උපදෙස් ලබාගෙන තමයි මේ අත්‍යවශ්‍ය වියදම් දරන්නේ. ඒ නිසා ඒ පිළිබඳ කාට හරි ඒ සඳහා Tamanට පුළුවන් මේ අවලාදනගනක ඉන්නේ නැතුව උසාවියේ තහනම් නියෝගයක් ගන්න ශේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයට යන්න පුළුවන්.
අමාත්‍යතුමා දැන් එතකොට දැන් ඔබතුමාගේ තර්කය රජය පැත්තෙන් සාධාරණයි. නමුත් ලංකාවේ ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවත් ලෝකෙ පිළිගත් මුදල් සම්ප්‍රදායත් සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම උල්ලංඝනය කිරීමක් වෙනවා කියලා තමයි කියන්නේ මෙලෙස ණය වැඩිපුර ගැනීම. මේ ඉදිරියට ලංකාව අපකීර්තියට පත්වීමටත් ඇතැම් විට විදේශ ආධාර නැති වෙන්නත් හේතු සාධක වෙන්න පුළුවන් නේද?
කුමක් සඳහාද මේ ණය අරන් තියෙන්නේ?
ණය ගන්න පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විසිරුවා හැරීමෙන් පසු මාස 3කට අතුරු සම්මත ගිණුමක් අනුමත කරගන්න ඕනේ. නමුත් ඒ වීදම් සඳහා අතුරු සම්මත ගිණුමක් මෙතෙක් අනුමත කරගෙන නැහැනේ.
ඉතින් ඔබතුමාට මම කියන මේ ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ අච්චු ගහලා තියෙන එක තේරෙන්නේ නැත්නම් මම මොකද්ද කරන්න කියලා ඔබතුමාම මට කියන්නකො. මම කියන්නේ
ඒක දෙන්නේ එමෙතුමා 153 සම්පූර්ණයෙන් පැහැදිලි කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
ඔව්.
ජනාධිපතිවරයාට වේදම් කිරීමට හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා කියලා. නමුත් ඉතිරි මාස 3 සඳහා දැන් කියන්නේ අප්‍රේල් 30 වෙනිදාන් පස්සේ ඉවරයිනේ.
ඒ කොහොමද?
අප්‍රේල් 30න් පස්සේ අතුරු සම්මත ගෙනුමේ මුදල් පාවිච්චි කරන්න හැකියාවක් නැහැනේ. එදායින් පස්සේ ඉවරයිනේ.
ඉතින් ඒක නිසා නේ මෙහෙම කරලා තියෙන්නේ. පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විසිරුවා ලැබ ඇති අවස්ථාවක පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විසින් රජයේ සේවාවන් සඳහා මුදල් වෙන් කර නොමැති නම්
ඒ සඳහා මාස 3කට නැවත අතුරු සම්මත ගෙනුමක් අනුමත කරගත යුතුයි.
කොහොමද? කොයිද එහෙම තියෙන්නේ මේකේ? මේකේ කොයි කොතනද තියෙන්නේ කියලා කියන්නේ.
ප්‍රායෝගික தත්ත්වය ඒකනේ.
කොහොමද ප්‍රායෝගික නීතියක තියෙන එකක් හැර ප්‍රායෝගිකයක් තියෙන්නේ කොහොමද? නීතියට පිටින් මේ තියෙන තැන
ඔබතුමා කියන්නේ ඕනෑම මුදලක් වේදම් කිරීමට හැකියාව ජනාධිපතිතුමාට බලතල තියනවා කියන එකද?
නැතුව
ඒ බලතල තියෙන ඇමතුමා අත්‍යවශ්‍ය සේවාවන් සඳහා පමණයි. ඒ කියන්නේ රජයේ සේවකයන්ගේ වැටුප් ගෙවන්න ඒ වගේ දෛනික අවශ්‍යතාව සඳහා. එතකොට අපි හිතමු කොරෝනා මර්ධන කටයුතු වෙනත් සංවර්ධන කටයුතු ඒ සඳහා හැකියාවක් නැහැනේ.
නෑ. එහෙනම් ජනතාවට මැරෙන්න දෙන්න ඕනේ.
ඒ හින්දා තමයි අතුරු සම්මත ගිණුමක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න නැත්නම් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව රැස් කරලා
ඉතින් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව
මුදා පනතක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුව රැස් කරන්න බෑනේ. පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විසිරුවා හැරියට පස්සේ.
ජනාධිපතිතුමාට හදිසි
ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ තියෙනවනේ හදිසි
155 යටතේ පුළුවන් නේ.
බෑනේ. එහි තියෙන්නේ ඉතින්
No, this notes that Parliament can be summoned to declare an emergency. There is nothing further. Parliament cannot adopt a vote on account.
යට කරන්න බෑ. අතුරු සම්මත ගෙනුම් බෑ.
හදිසි අවස්ථාවක් කියන්නේ දැන් අපිට දැන් මේ තියෙන තත්ත්වෙත් එක්ක රජයේ දැවැන්ත මූල්‍ය අර්බුදයකට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවානේ. ඒකම ඇත්ති හදිසි අවස්ථාවක් විදියට පත් කරලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුව රැස් කරනවා.
ඒක ඔබතුමාගේ අදහසනේ. රටේ
That is your opinion. It is the opinion of the President, who was voted in by 6.9 million citizens, the Prime Minister and the caretaker government, that the government does not need to govern the country under a state of emergency. So it has been clearly stated to the people and the country that the President will not summon a dead parliament, a dissolved parliament.
සඳහා කැඳවන්නේ නැහැ කියන එක බොහොම පැහැදිලිව රටටයි ජනතාවටයි සඳහන් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒක රජයේ තීරණය.
Constitutional implications of certain decisions made by the government. The letter is titled, "Please, Mr. President, enough with the politics, do not fear democracy." The letter cautions the President on the economic crisis in the country and criticizes the conduct of the Treasury Secretary for his role in presenting a report justifying the submission of a so-called vote on account without a vote in Parliament. He also criticized the President's Secretary's appeal to public servants to bear the burden of the government's illegal actions by donating part of their wages. Mangala Samaravira adds that individuals purporting to be state ministers are drawing allowances whose value would provide 5,000 rupees for 4,900 families. The letter highlights how the government has shown utter disregard for the Constitution, the law and democratic checks and balances on public finance. Number 1. The circular issued on the 10th of March by the Treasury Secretary authorizing expenditure under Article 150 Section 3 of the Constitution from March 6th onwards.
Samaraveera argues that Parliament has already made detailed provisions under the vote on account for the period from 1st January to 30th April. Therefore, the question of invoking Article 150 Section 3 does not even arise until April 30th. He concludes that this circular is unconstitutional and has no validity in law. The government has exceeded the borrowing limit by 120 billion rupees. The legality of that debt is now in question, deeply affecting the credibility of the government when borrowing from international and local markets. Samaraveera warns that the country will have to pay the price for these actions through higher borrowing costs. Invoking Article 150 Section 3 is not possible when Parliament has already made fiscal provisions. Further, Article 150 Section 3 can be invoked for a limited period. The period must be defined and is not indefinite. Samaraveera opines that with the absence of a date on which new Parliament is summoned, read with Article 148, which gives Parliament full control over public finances, it is abundantly clear that the government has no authority to draw from the consolidated fund. Samaraveera stresses on the need of Parliament to increase the borrowing limit, authorize expenditure and pass new laws. He warns of the risk of hundreds of thousands of people losing their jobs in the coming months. He writes, quote, "As importantly, we need to free public servants' minds and energy to focus on their jobs, not spend sleepless nights worrying about the legality of their actions or whether they will be paid." Mangala Samaraveera concludes by urging the President to avoid a crisis and summon Parliament under Article 70, Section 7 and develop a plan in consultation with all stakeholders.
When inquired, the Secretary to the Finance Ministry said a loan was taken from China on the 18th of March and funds would be received the next week. The next week meaning the 25th of March, which has already passed. So that money should have come by now. Then it was mentioned that the agreement was signed for another $500 to $700 million. $126 million have been received from the World Bank. This has been agreed upon and they will disburse it along with the budget for 2020. There is $1.2 million from Japan via UNICEF and the Red Cross. Recently, when the US ambassador met the president, she reminded him of how much they have given. The European Union has provided 22 million euros, 2 million for medical equipment, 16.5 million euros for agriculture, 3.5 million euros for small and medium enterprises and their employees in the Uva and central provinces, including for the tourism industry. They have mentioned it comprehensively. I don't know what they are talking about when they say they haven't received anything.
යුරෝ මිලියන 3.5ක් සංචාරක ව්‍යාපාරයට අනාදී වශයෙන් සවිස්තරාත්මකව මොන ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. මම දන්නේ මොකක්ද කියන්නේ කියලා හම්බුන්නේ නැහැ කියලා.
Now, the allocation of public finances continues to be problematic, as pointed out by legal experts, financial experts, as well as members of the political arena, political activists and political organizations. Now, with the public financing sector in Sri Lanka continuing to be problematic, Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara issued a request to all state sector employees to donate a fraction of their salary or their entire month's pay to the COVID-19 fund. Now, this request made by the Secretary to the President was met with mixed reviews. Here are some of the views that were expressed in the political arena regarding this request.
While the debate on public finances and the constitutionality of the government's actions continues, the request made by Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara to state sector employees has also led to much controversy.
If he requested for a day's salary, generally everyone would have donated it willingly. But when someone requests for a day's salary or a month's salary, we must think about how they are going to survive. State sector employees need their salaries to live. They don't have any other mode of income. I saw the President addressing the nation and reducing the prices of canned fish and dal. People suffered for about a month. Now the President's Secretary is inviting them to suffer some more. While the state sector employees are being asked to tighten their belts, ministers of the government continue to enjoy all of their benefits. It is not an order or a circular. This is a cordial invitation extended to all state sector employees in a spirit of brotherhood. Some state sector employees received their entire salary even after they stayed at home for the entire month. They didn't have to spend any money on transport and other expenses. They were paid the entire salary.
සම්පූර්ණයෙන් ගෙව්වේ.
Having a feeling like this is justifiable. There is a big difference when there is a deficit in the budget that adds up to billions of rupees and when they are trying to bridge this gap with a meager sum of money from state employees. It sounds like a joke. They are trying to reimburse themselves for that 5,000 rupee grant they gave to the people. They are trying to sacrifice state sector employees and cut their salary. If you have 2 ears and 2 eyes, listen to this and read it well before you reply. Secretary to the President, P.B. Jayasundara, only requested state sector employees to donate a day's pay or a week's pay or half a month's pay willingly if they wish to do so. There is no statement made requiring any state employee to mandatorily donate their salary to this. During the past few months, all additional allowances of state sector employees were slashed. They depended on their monthly salary alone. So I must state that as per our constitution and the law, the country's salaries of state sector employees cannot be slashed in any way. That is against our fundamental laws. It is also against international labour practices. If the government has a problem in allocating the funds for government servants, convene parliament and pass the necessary provisions to pay the salaries of state sector employees. We will vote in favour of those proposals. There are some state sector employees who are still unmarried. If they don't have children and other commitments, they can willingly donate to this. There are a handful of people like that waiting for such an opportunity. I believe this opportunity was given to such people. As public representatives, we understand the sufferings of the state sector employees when we live with them. This is not a big problem for state sector employees who get a big salary and who are unmarried and have no other commitments. That was not an order. I saw members of the JVP saying that it was a mistake for him to make the request as a secretary. Today the coconuts from the trees in the temple are distributed among the people. Paddy is distributed among the people. Businessmen are distributing food parcels. And anyone who has the right to make a request from the general public of the country. But to these people who are eyeing the election, they have been surprised by this. We see these are low-level comments. We would like to ask P.B. Jayasundara, do you get 3 salaries and 3 allowances? Answer this question. You worked at the central bank. Do you get your pension from there? You served as a secretary to the Ministry of Finance. Do you get your pension from there? Now you are employed as a secretary to the president. Do you get that salary and allowance as well? Do you get 3 allowances? When a person is receiving 2 or 3 or 4 salaries like this, making such a donation is not an issue. But for people who are receiving a very small amount as their salary, doing this is not possible. State sector employees are uneasy due to this undue influence exerted on them.
The Ceylon Electricity Board's General Workers Union has opposed the request for public sector employees to forego their salaries for the month of May, either in part or in full. The union's president, Malaka Vikramasinghe, has written to the secretary to the president, Dr. P.B. Jayasundara, noting that CEB employees will disregard this request. The letter also notes that a majority of employees at the CEB and consumers believe that successive governments have been blind and deaf to fraud and corruption within the CEB. Vikramasinghe writes that if the government can show that even one step has been taken against fraud and corruption within the CEB, then the workers, the 6 million consumers and the 1.4 million public sector employees would support Dr. Jayasundara's request. The letter lists a total of 7 causes for frustration among CEB workers. There is one matter that was proven in court. This is the illegal salary increment which was given in 2015. They have the ability to take a step against this today and save 1 billion by tomorrow. The monthly allowance for public employees amounts to 100 billion. 1 billion can be saved by stopping this thievery at the CEB. We saw how a similar step was taken in Thailand in the face of a financial crisis. People in that country came forward to donate gold as well. We can do it here too, but stop the corruption and show us first. You won't need any new commissions to take these steps. The letter reads further that although workers and union leaders who spoke out against corruption within the CEB are deliberately hounded, the struggle will continue until these issues are addressed. Vikramasinghe notes that many CEB workers are hopeful that corruption within the CEB can be halted during the administration of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He writes that whilst it is necessary to strengthen the treasury at this time, True benefactors are discouraged when they see these funds being misused by a small group of persons due to fraud and corruption. The letter concludes that since the illegality of the salary increment has been proven in court, there is no further need for committees or commissions to investigate and recommend action, and that the CEB General Workers Union expects a prompt response from the Secretary to the President. Meanwhile, the Ceylon Teachers Service Union expressed their views at a press briefing today. We can see that MPs and ministers of the ruling party have been justifying this for the past 2 days. It is very clear that this is a conspiracy. We would like to ask how much funds are in their Widows and Orphans Fund. Is there such a fund? As far as we know, there is no such fund. They are saying that they are taking money for that fund. On what basis are they allocating money for a fund that does not exist? We saw in the media the governor of the Sabaragamuwa province handing a check to the president. What is in that letter? The letter states that ₹1 million of the Sabaragamuwa provincial fund was handed over for the pay cuts of the employees for the month of July. If this is done with the permission of everyone, if one person objects, this cannot be continued. Together with the independent trade unions of the government workers, postal, railway and health services, we are ready to express our objection regarding this. We will definitely take action regarding the matter.
Leader of the Jatika Helorumaya, partly Champika Ranavaka, and leader of the Navalanka Nidhas Paksha Kumara Velgama filed a fundamental rights application today challenging the decision to hold the election under the current climate.
The petitioners are seeking orders from the Supreme Court, suspending the President's proclamation dissolving Parliament and preventing the Election Commission from conducting the general election. Attorney at law Dinesh Vidana Patirana filed the fundamental rights application on behalf of the two former MPs. The petitioners state, the President has breached his constitutional obligation by failing to rescind the dissolution proclamation following the decision of the Election Commission to postpone the election to the 20th of June, which will not permit the new Parliament to meet within 3 months of the dissolution.
Now, these are some of the views expressed by various politicians regarding the holding of the elections and the fundamental rights application filed today.
Mr. President, the people believed in you and gave you this mandate. We do not see you upholding the constitution. As candidates, we cannot go and meet our people in our constituencies. We can't hold a meeting. We have no preferential voting number. I do not know why the National Election Commission cannot seem to understand the inability to hold a free and fair election. Are all these concerns falling onto deaf ears of the National Election Commission? We urge the National Election Commission to be vociferous in this matter. Please tell the President that you cannot hold an election. We cannot walk over dead bodies and engage in an election. This is what we have to tell the government. A matter that is at centre stage now is to convene the previous parliament. Some people have gone to courts as well. One thing we have to remind them is that they compare this to the coup in November 2018. Many things have changed nationally and internationally compared to November 2018. Elections held in 1988 and in March 1989 share similar traits. The election affairs were carried out during the curfew. People who talk about a free and fair election have forgotten about this. We are not experts. As politicians, we are of the opinion that we must seek the advice of experts in this matter. The Bandaranayaka Mawatha opposite the National Election Commission was quarantined. Against such a situation, who can predict the situation in other areas? The road is right in front of the National Election Commission. What can we say when the situation is such? Farmers in Mawatagama informed Newsfirst that a canal in the area has been blocked by authorities, claiming this is to enable an irrigation construction project. This concrete canal is unique in the fact that rather than receive water through the Anicut, the farmers look on as the Anicut takes water from them. This was about 4 or 5 feet wide. It was raised 6 inches and 2 feet were used to pour in the concrete. Now the water flows down the 6-inch gradient to the sluice. We don't receive water anymore. Construction on this concrete canal, replacing the existing natural waterway, commenced about a year and a half ago with the intervention of political authorities and the contractor. The farmers were not informed. Farmers note that because of the anomaly in construction, they are unable to receive any water even though the reservoir is at spill level. Here you are, sir. This is the level of the mouth. 3/4 of the mouth has been closed off. What little water is there comes through this. Farmers who cultivate 57 acres of land in Lindapitiya, Dematagolla and Tarapota using the water that flows through this anicut say that whilst they used to cultivate during both harvest seasons, due to the lack of water, they are struggling to cultivate for even one season. We have been unable to cultivate because of the water shortage. In the other fields, the paddy is ripening. After they poured in the concrete, we are dependent on the rains for our cultivation. The farmers have informed the responsible authorities, including the Mawatagama Divisional Secretariat and the Agrarian Services officials. The issue was brought up at the Mawatagama Regional Agriculture Committee meeting, where it was decided that it would be referred to the Deputy Commissioner of Agrarian Development in Kurunagala for further investigation. We have informed the District Agrarian Services Commissioner. The Chief Engineer there came here and took measurements. He accepted that the concrete canal is 6 inches higher than the sluice. However, to date, they have not provided a solution. An elder in this community shared these sentiments with us. Dudley was the Prime Minister of the country back then. Our parents submitted a letter to him. Within a week, a directive was issued to construct the anicut. Now they have poured in concrete without even informing the farmers. We have no one but the gods to take our lament to.
Busy roads in Sri Lanka were left deserted after curfew was imposed. What is the current state of the otherwise bustling city of Colombo? Let's take a look. Five suspects arrested for the assault of a person in Thisava, an area under the Vallava Police Division, were placed in remand custody today. They were produced before the Kurunagala Magistrates Court.
A group had attacked a father of two residing in Thisava at about 2:30 last afternoon. It was revealed that the group of assailants were from Gonagama. They had also caused serious damage to the victim's shop.
They came to attack me. My father pushed me away and then they attacked him. They threw stones at our shop. The people in the village came here after they heard the noise. There was about 45,000 rupees in the cash register and they took all of it.
The victim of the attack is currently being treated at the Kurunagala Teaching Hospital. They attacked me inhumanely. They attacked me with swords and cables. The five suspects arrested in connection to the incident were remanded until the 18th of this month.
Fossil remains believed to be of an unknown animal have been discovered in Thurayaya, Kurunagala. The Department of Archaeology has drawn its attention towards the matter.
Milton Somaratna, a resident of the Thorayaya village in Kurunagala, had commenced digging to construct a sewage pit on his land. He claimed several faunal remains of a white hue had appeared once he had dug a few meters from the surface. When I cracked the rock and dug around 5 meters further, I came across a small square of clay. Then I came across several white particles. Following the discovery, he had stopped excavating. Milton Somaratna, who recovered the remains, had contacted a former deputy director of the Department of Archaeology and area resident, Upali Watuge. I showed it to an area resident who was employed at the Department of Archaeology. The police asked me to keep the remains in my possession. Former Deputy Director Upali Watuge said an inspection should be carried out. I feel these are not the remains of a known species. The manner in which it was placed beneath the surface of clay is extraordinary. This has some sort of historical value. Thus, it is pertinent to conserve the remains and conduct a study.
ඉදිරි පරීක්ෂණ සඳහා යොමු කිරීමට සුදුසුයි කියලා මම යෝජනා.
Newsfirst made inquiries from the Director General of the Department of Archaeology, Professor Senarath Disanayaka, regarding the discovery. He noted steps will be taken to dispatch a team of paleobiologists to the location to conduct a study.
Meanwhile, community physicians have pointed out the importance of being vigilant during this time.
As a consultant community physician, do you think that is there light at the end of the tunnel, or is Sri Lanka gearing up to live with this virus as of now?
Actually, Tarusha, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. I believe in that. But having said that, we should also realize the fact that we will have to live with this virus for quite some time, whether we like it or not, right? So we have to get ourselves adjusted, our mindsets adjusted to live in this new normalcy, things that we were not doing in the pre-corona period. So we have to be empowered mentally and also physically to live in this new way of life.
Being on the road, mobility, buses, public transport will operate, country will slowly lift its head. Yes. But what should the people be concerned of? What should the people be cautious of?
Yeah. The first and foremost thing we should think about is, now we should try and stay home as much as possible. So before we go out of the house, we should think, is this errand really necessary? Do I really have to go for this thing? If there is a way that we can get it done without going out of the house, then we better do that. Secondly, you should make sure that the minimum number of people leave the house. Thirdly, we should always protect our elderly and people with pre-existing conditions. So those are the people who are more vulnerable to the disease and who can get more worse effects if they contract the disease. So,
very important thing to Sri Lanka right now is what is happening with the schools. Will A-level be held at the end of this year? What is the school mechanism is going to be like? What is the teaching methodology? Is it going to change? What are the amendments that you have done?
We can look at it in under three main areas. One thing, first thing is the teaching methodology. The mechanism of teaching can be changed. There are novel methods that are happening in the world. I mean, new classroom setups. Out of the classroom teaching, new ways of teaching. So those innovations can be brought in within our limitations. We should always remember that all of our children don't have internet facility. So, but still, for all, within those limitations, there are certain things which we can do to change the teaching methodology. Secondly, we can think of altering the environment, the teaching environment. For instance, like try and use outside classroom settings as much as possible, and the seating arrangements, and how to get down the children to school, whether we can get down all of them every day or we get them on alternate days, something like that. And thirdly, practicing of all the healthy behaviors in the school, from hand washing to social distancing, wearing masks and all that. So those are the three main areas that we can focus on when it comes to education. Yeah.
Just before we wrap up, Doctor, whatever said and done, although many measures have been taken by the authorities and the medical officers and the government itself, it actually comes to the individual himself at the end of the day, because this is a virus that can be spread from person to person. Starting from the 11th of this month, starting from Monday, how important is self-discipline?
Yes, that's a very good question actually. Now, as you all know, the battle against the virus is based on the whole of government, whole of society approach. Whatever you do in your day-to-day life, you should always be very cautious every time, in everything you do, not to get infected yourself, and if you are having the infection, not to give it to other people. So you might have to learn to live in a new way, but I don't think that is practically impossible. I mean, we've been doing it for the last so many months, so I think we can do that.
Moving on in more local news, multiple factions have expressed their opinion regarding the transfer handed to the director of the MANGALA teaching hospital today.
මැතිවරණ කාලය තුලදී කෙසේද
How was the transfer handed over when an election is impending? This is illegal in my opinion. The root cause of this issue is a house given by former MP Nalin Bandaru being used by doctors at the hospital. A minor dispute which occurred then with the mayor has resulted in this. A certain doctor at the hospital is attempting to fish in troubled waters and has exacerbated the situation by opposing the director. He is currently the director of the port.
අධ්‍යක්ෂ දුරය දරනවා ඒක චෝදනාව මම හිතන්නේ එතුමා සමහර
He might be targeting me because he is afraid all these unions are influential. He would have thought if he silences one union, it would be over. Over the past few months, the president reiterated that erudites of the country should be utilized to develop the country. In the Kurunegala district, there are around 10 doctors. There are other professionals appointed to the director posts of many state institutions. The post of a director is an honorary title. You can remain in that position while being engaged in your own profession. This came forward through the president's Viyatmaga concept.
Now, when speaking of the human-elephant conflict, it is important that we comprehend what the animals are looking for when they encroach on human settlements. We received this CCTV footage from Polonnaruwa, which shows an instance where a hungry elephant did not wreak havoc.
This elephant entered a rice mill in Kadawat Maduwa Valikanda in Polonnaruwa at about 4 a.m. on the 7th of this month to eat the rice in the mill. The owner of the mill said that the elephant remained here for about 45 minutes and had left without causing any other property damage. According to the villagers, the elephant had encroached on the village from the Somawathiya reserve.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1 for tonight. Of course, if you want to follow details of these stories and more, you can log on to our award-winning website www.newsfirst.lk. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. We leave you tonight with another rendition of the Negite Mo Sri Lanka song, as we usually do every night. Thank you very much for tuning in to Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlene Benedict for the News First team with our interpreter for tonight, Taraka Gabriel. Take care, God bless. Follow government guidelines on social distancing. We'll see you again, same time, same place tomorrow. Take care.